the Great British Manufacturing Podcast, brought to you by MTD, MFG and Jefferson.
Hello and welcome to this week's Great British Manufacturing Podcast. On this week's show, we're going to tell you all about the latest manufacturing news from the UK sector, plus we have two special guests. We have news from Rolls-Royce, Lotus, GE, Kraft Heinz and so much more. And this week we're delighted to welcome BAE Systems to join us on the podcast. My name is Joe Reynolds and I'm joined by my co-host Stuart Whitehead. Before we welcome our guests, let's start with some positive manufacturing news. Stu, this week we broke a story about Heinz and I'm pleased to say it's gone viral. It seems to be everywhere.
Certainly has, Joe. Tomato ketchup is coming home. American-owned Kraft Heinz announced plans to invest £140 million at its Kitt Green plant in Wigan, Europe's largest food production facility. The investment will be focused on further modernising the site over the next 4 years and bringing Heinz's iconic sauce manufacturing back to the UK. Tomato ketchup and other sauces were last made in the UK in 1999. And this is the American-owned firm's biggest investment in more than 2 decades outside of the US and is expected to create up to 50 new jobs.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? We heard about this beginning of the week and it's come to fruition, but a load of the board sheets have had it. I see it was the front page of one of the red top newspapers and it was on some of our, some of the mainstream media outlets. It's great to see manufacturing finally in the public eye.
Oh, certainly. And this follows news from Cadbury a couple of months ago that dairy milk is coming home as well. So hopefully there's a trend developing, Joe.
Yeah, 100%. And Lotus, they've announced further details of their 100 million, investment program. There's more good news coming out of Lotus.
Yeah, incredible news. The new Emira model has entered pre-production in Hethel, and Lotus has revealed further details of the substantial investments made in its UK operations. Quite a list here. Here goes. This includes 2 new production halls at the British Marks Norfolk base, a new paint shop, a new assembly hall, a new fabrication facility in Norwich, a new learning academy, a new advanced technology centre in Warwickshire. The workforce at Lotus Norfolk sites at Hethel and Norwich has almost doubled since October 2017 when Geely became the majority shareholder. With the launch of the Emira, Lotus is creating more than 200 new roles and recruitment is now underway.
Anything else? Crikey, that's some list, isn't it?
Nothing else at the moment, maybe next week.
And GE Renewable Energy, they've submitted plans for a new blade factory in Teesside. It's something we talked about a few weeks ago. In fact, Kwasi Kwarteng touched on it last week too. There's a lot going on in the Northeast at the moment. Yeah,
this is progressing that story that Kwasi mentioned, as you say, last week. So plans have now been submitted for the new plant on Teesside and blades for the offshore wind turbines will be manufactured at the plant. First images of the new facility have been released, and this is going to be sited at the South Bank zone of the Teeswork site. Blade Factory will sit alongside a new 1 kilometre heavy lift quay, which Tees Valley Mayor Ben Houchen, who will be on a future podcast, says will create the UK's premier location for offshore wind. The American-owned firm expects a huge development to create 750 direct jobs and support a further 1,500 across the UK supply chain.
Stuart, I'll stop you there and welcome our very special guests, Andy Schofield and Alex Griffiths of BAE Systems. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Hi guys.
So just to start with, can we talk about your respective backgrounds really? Andy, if you want to start.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I've joined the company actually over 40 years ago. So I'm apprentice graduate within the organisation that's probably had quite a lengthy experience of a number of different projects and different experiences across my career, to be honest. And I've got to say, guys like Alex and in the early careers that are joining the company now, the journey that they're going to be on, particularly when we look at the next generation aircraft, and particularly Tempest, the journey of seeing that through concept development, through to manufacturing, through to, let's say, production and in service with the respective air forces is a fantastic journey to be on. So that's been my experience on projects like Typhoon aircraft, and it's a fantastic thing to be involved with. And the things that we're doing now really give our graduates and apprentices a cracking sort of basis really to build on things like Factory of the Future, which I know we'll talk about in a bit more detail shortly.
Thanks a lot, Andy. And how about yourself, Alex?
So I joined as an apprentice as well, rather more recently, although still not too recently, I suspect. I was in the 2010 apprentice intake. So I joined with A-levels but no manufacturing or engineering experience, which actually still put me ahead of many of my cohorts who had just GCSEs. And have been taken from there through kind of full training, hands-on NVQ qualifications, HNC and HND as part of the apprenticeship, into a role doing manufacturing engineering on Typhoon Eurofighter. I ended up kind of going on from there to do a sponsored bachelor's degree in mechatronics, and I'm now most of the way through a sponsored master's degree in artificial intelligence to help working on the Factory of the Future program and kind of future technologies.
Yeah, incredible. Thank you very much for that, Bo. It seems an incredible place to work. So can one of you just give us, or both of you, give us just a brief overview of BAE Systems?
Okay, so BAE Systems, hopefully most people will be aware that we're a large, major global defence organisation that really, I think is probably best described as we engineer great products, we manufacture great products, and we also support those products when they're in service. So we often describe the organisation as a fantastic manufacturing company, which is underpinned by world-class engineering capability across the aerospace industry. Really, there's 100 years really of experience in the design and manufacture, particularly in our part of the business, which is the air sector, the design and manufacture of fast jets. The company in total is probably just short of 90,000 employees globally in 40 different countries. It's sort of dominated our employees either within the US or within the UK, and within that we work with many customers and many partners to provide defence products, which range from naval ships to submarines to air products to land systems and a growing capability in cybersecurity as we speak at the moment. So a vast range of defence products globally. With probably 2/3 of our organisation really are experienced engineers, qualified engineers. So it's a big engineering background that we have, and we take great pride really. And Alice has already mentioned, early careers and apprentices. That when I started, when he started, we employ probably every year, about 3,000 young people in our through our training areas, and probably in excess of 800 apprentices and 400 graduates that join the company each year. So it's a hotbed really of young talent coming through and the experience that we gained, and we've got a great balance, I think, of experienced employees and early careers that bring on a whole new sort of outlook on how we should do things, particularly from a technology point of view.
Great summary, thank you, and fantastic to hear about your respective backgrounds. You've referenced Factory of the Future program a couple of times. Could you please explain what that is and what it entails?
Yeah, so Factory of the Future really is if we look backwards at all our major aircraft projects and think about what we've established, and we look at Typhoon aircraft, which is in service with the RAF, and it was concepted really in the 1980s and went through a production program in the 1990s and went into service with the respective air forces in early 2000. Prior to that, we put in place. We knew we had to develop new technologies, new capabilities, because it was a fifth generation aircraft that needed to be better than the previous aircraft that we built. So every time we've introduced new aircraft products, we've had to demonstrate and show our advances really in technologies. And Factory of the Future is really looks at how we establish those capabilities in the future. And when we look at other sectors, whether we look at transport and pharmaceutical and automotive and civil aircraft, we look at all those different sectors. The challenges within manufacturing are no different, really. It's a lot of it's around productivity improvement. So how can we do things quicker and cheaper going forward compared to what we've done? And we've got some, like many organisations, we've got some world-class facilities in place, particularly with our Typhoon aircraft and more recently with our F-35 aircraft. We've got some really top-class, world-class facilities, but we know that we have to move on from there and shift the paradigm, as we call it, and do things differently. So Factory of the Future gives us the opportunity really to sort of lay the foundations for what the future would look like, particularly when we move into our next 6th generation aircraft and the replacement of Typhoon, which is known as Tempest, which looks to go into service in around 2035. So we're not too far off really from establishing that capability. And the Factory of the Future, although it's a physical area where we can introduce new technologies and new ways of working, it's more as a framework really of how we work with academia. We've got 5 strategic universities within the company that we work with across the UK, and they all bring sort of new outlooks really to what we should be working on, and sort of low technology levels of maturity that are things that may be useful in 5, 10, 15 years time. So we've some great partnerships with our universities. We've got some great partnerships with the research centres within the UK, particularly the High Value Manufacturing Catapult, and work very closely with those organisations, research centres. The Factory of the Future really also brings together our partnerships with small startup companies, SMEs, supply chain, and blue chip companies as well. So if you think about who's involved with our Factory of the Future and the numbers, we've got probably 50, 60 different types of partners who bring all sorts of, say, different types of perspectives on what we should work in. Not in some cases, not traditional aerospace companies either. So that's really the outlook of it. It also brings in the Royal Air Force, so where the requirements of what we're trying to do come from, and that starts to really drive the manufacturing agenda. So the Factory of the Future, I say, is a physical environment. It starts to bring together all the what are known as industrial digitisation technologies, such as additive manufacture, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, data analysis, all those technologies really that we all know, again, irrespective of which sector you're in, are all aimed at improving productivity. So, and we're no different. So we've established a facility on our Wharton site in the northwest, and within there we are demonstrating how we can integrate a number of these technologies, and we get connected shop floor, connected factories, how we link with the supply chain, the use of things like 5G, and all aspects of machine learning and predicting what the future might be used by data analysis. So that's what the Factory of the Future looks like. And as I say, it's a combination of who we work with, what we work on, and the physical demonstration of that, and the use of robotics and automation, how they work in conjunction with humans. So shifting the way we would normally see a factory, a shop floor look at how it might look like. And if I just hand over to Alex is part of the team, and he's working on specific examples of connectivity and the Internet of Things, all those aspects that are really, fundamental to what the Factory of the Future will deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. It's critical, I think, that we move away from the idea of a factory as a great big room full of machines, and towards this idea that the factory is a machine, that all the components, be they people or be they operational technology like robotics, milling machines, 3D printers, whatever else, it's all part of the same connected whole. So we need to be able to exchange data quickly and easily between them, which is a large part of my current focus in terms of getting things networked together, getting things talking the same languages, pulling data into central positions, analyzing that data, and then getting kind of actionable insight and potentially even automatic response from that data back onto the factory floor. That's a really, really critical part of how we see the Factory of the Future working. And just to expand as well on something that Andy mentioned before, that BAE Systems, our success is from sitting at the middle of this massive web of suppliers, both of physical components, but also of expertise. So the kind of consortium projects and working with these strategic partners, it's the idea is the rising tide that lifts all boats. That benefits everybody, ourselves included, to share that expertise out with other UK businesses.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, really. Thanks for that, replies. But what's the end goal? Is it to make better, cheaper aircraft, or is it just to help UK or maybe even global manufacturing as a whole?
The whole essence really is that if you think about the next generation aircraft and the requirements of that, there's without doubt there's always going to be an affordability requirement. The time it took the previous aircraft from concept through to get to become into service with the Air Forces. That time has been drastically reduced. So we have a time constraint on our hands. So we have to look at how we can realise that challenge. And obviously affordability is paramount in probably everything that everybody does. So, but also we have other requirements, particularly on the aircraft that a factory of the future can start to realise. How can the products in the future be more reconfigurable? How can they be upgraded in the future? How can they be maintained more easily by the customers, and particularly on the Air Force base, as I've said. So it's a UK initiative. It's about realising the national agenda, as we've described it previously, around job creation, around supply chain, around keeping within the UK the ability to both design, engineer, manufacture, and support the products that are built in the UK. So there's a national sort of prosperity agenda requirement on this. So and if you think about again our supply chain, 70% of our current aircraft projects are in our supply chain. So it's important that what we do within BAE Systems and the other Tempest partners, for example, it's important that supply chain have the ability to go on that journey as well, because it's quite easy in some cases for us as a large company to have a go at working with academia, research centres, and suppliers and develop some of these fantastic methods. But we need to take the supply chain on that journey. So initiatives such as Made Smarter, that was introduced a few years ago as a major UK initiative from the government, that starts to address how we can use new technologies and advanced technologies to not only help supply chain, help develop a manufacturing capability in the UK, but also develop the skills and leadership that's needed as we move forward, because we move into a different phase, a different generation really from what we've had previously. So we talk about the engineering of the future. We talk about people being more aware really of data and connectivity and automation and all those aspects that traditionally aren't things that we've taught. So a big part of what we do is the development of the skills of the future. So there's a lot when we talk about Factory of the Future. There's a lot covered by that terminology really. It's not just, as Alex said, it's not just the physical shop floor. It's a lot of things that you just don't see that enable us to provide that future, what we look like.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's fairly unique, when you think of academia working this closely with industry. Obviously, you mentioned the catapult centres, but outside of that, there's very little. And it must be fairly unique because presumably a lot of these projects, you've mentioned robotics, augmented reality, CNC machining, additive, lots of other things. Presumably a lot of these projects will fail and you're after half a dozen gems.
Yeah, and that's it. That's it. We often use the terminology of fast fail. So we set up with targets and objectives, and it's okay to try things out. We're not pushing the boundaries if we don't see some failures there, and it's really a balance between the technologies that are available now, and there are plenty of them that we can customize and adapt and start to use in our current aircraft programs, which we have done quite successfully. So we've deployed a number of advanced manufacturing technologies and engineering technologies onto our Typhoon aircraft, for example, and seen the benefits of that. So the balance of taking those reasonably mature technologies, and the trick really is how you integrate them into a current manufacturing system, and then looking at things that maybe are 3, 4, 5 years away that we need to be more focused on, and that's where the catapult centres come in, moving into those methods and technologies and ideas that are maybe 10, 15 years away, which is where academia comes in. So it's having the balance of the requirements that we have for what we're trying to do compared to the ideas that are being generated by research students, for example. They said actually that might be a good idea. So that's why we've developed the partnerships and the networks that we've got, and it's working really well. We're seeing some great advances that we're showcasing and demonstrating our Factory of the Future, but also how we collaborate and partner and work with with various organisations to get really the most efficient way of trying to solve the same problem in some cases.
Sounds fascinating. And so how fluid or flexible is Factory of the Future? Are you bringing different experts and different partners in at different phases of the programme?
Yeah, there's a number, as you can probably imagine, there's a lot of publicity that we've had and still receiving around what we're doing in this generic terminology of Factory of the Future. And so a number of organisations, contact us and say they want to be part of that, and they bring something slightly different, which is quite refreshing. Some organisations that we've not experienced previously, and the non-traditional aerospace or manufacturing organisations, so gaming companies, for example, and how we can use visualisation methods, and particularly organisations that are very used to analysing lots and lots of data that we would probably have not thought of before. So depending on what we're trying to do and where we are in the life cycle, brings in either innovative thinkers that might give us some ideas, through to, as we home in on the idea and start to think, well, that's going to give us a real benefit, you start to then say, well, how do you then take that idea and put it into practice? Because there's probably lots of good innovations out there, but when you try to actually implement it into a production system, then it all becomes a bit difficult. So the good thing about it is, we know what we're trying to do. We know how that has to, the challenges that we've got, and we can set those challenges where previously probably research centres and I think and academia in the past might not have had the real challenge. It's just, let's work on something that might be a good idea, and it might be useful somewhere, but now we can be quite specific about what it is we're trying to do.
And are you able to share your findings? Are you able to share your expertise with other industries, or is that commercially sensitive?
Some of it is specific to what we're trying to do, because it's related to the types of things we do. But in the main, a lot of the output really of what we're developing. I think I've mentioned before, we are working with other sectors, particularly in this government initiative, the Make Smarter Government Initiative, which brings in automotive, it brings in pharmaceutical. And the challenges really that we face are almost exactly the same. It's how you apply it to the particular problem area that you've got, where and that application really, the integration of lots of these different methods, that's where the intellectual property sits, because that's the trick of, there's lots of things available, but how you stick them all together is really where the knowledge is being generated. But working with, we work to a point, we all work together to a point where it becomes specific to, so we work with Nissan, for example, we'll have some very similar ideas, but when they become quite specific to their car production line, it will be their intellectual property that's specific to them, which is fine. But the general ideas of how we take some of these technologies that will provide an advantage, we share all that. We work together to try and solve the same problem. I think we've found in the past we've probably all tried to solve problems ourselves, and it's become probably quite expensive to do that. So it's quite natural, really, to nowadays to start to collaborate and partner more on what are the same challenges.
I mean, certainly a good understanding of what the IP assignment coming out of a project will be is important to have established before you go into it. But collaboration as a force multiplier is a really, really powerful tool. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, well, fascinating, Jed. Anything to add, Stuart?
No, learned a lot, and thanks so much for joining us today. It's been absolutely fascinating. I'm sure the listeners will appreciate it.
Andy, Alex, really do appreciate your time. Keep up the good work, and no doubt we'll catch up again at a later stage. Thanks again.
Cheers.
Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot.
So a great interview there with Andy and Alex. BAE Systems, some business, isn't it?
It certainly is. The scale of the operation is truly staggering, isn't it?
A similar theme, Rolls-Royce have opened up their £90 million test bed in Derby. Really good to see this open.
Certainly is. As you say, they've officially opened Testbed 80, the largest and smartest indoor aerospace testbed in the world. The facility has been designed to test a range of today's engines, including the Trent XWB and the Trent 1000, but will also have the capability to test the UltraFan demonstrator, the blueprint for the aerospace firm's next generation of engines. The completion of the project is a major milestone after almost 3 years of construction and a £90 million investment.
And Stu, SAICA, they're building a 50 million factory in West Lothian. Fantastic for the area.
Certainly is. Robertson will lead the construction of a new packaging production facility in West Lothian after being awarded an £18 million contract by SAICA Group, which is establishing a 50 million plant in Livingston. The current building on the site, formerly a distribution centre for a leading supermarket chain, will be converted into a cardboard manufacturing facility as SAICA aims to increase capacity and its customer offering. The main building will be retained and refurbished. Several extensions will be put in play, modifications to accommodate production equipment. Construction is due to complete in December 21, with SAICA Pack intending to open the new site directly after completion.
Yeah, 50 million, that's a huge investment. But the next story we've got here, it's nearly 3 times that. ETEX are building a new £140 million factory in Bristol.
Yeah, continuing the inward investment theme, we've had 2 American organisations. We've had a Spanish company, SAICA. This is Belgian-owned construction materials manufacturer ETEX. They have now secured planning permission for a new £140 million plant in Bristol. And this is the single largest investment in the firm's 116-year history. The huge expansion will significantly increase its production capacity in the UK to meet increasing global demand for its plasterboard solutions.
Yeah, and the next story, Nissan, the Nissan Qashqai, it's going to be made from aluminium following a large investment. This is something I until this morning, I wasn't aware of. Tell us more.
Yeah, the all-new Qashqai will be the Japanese car maker's first model built in Europe using a number of aluminium panels, as you say, following a £52 million investment at the Sunderland plant. The investment in aluminium production includes a second large press line, which was launched last year, and the Cyclone, a recycling facility that blasts scrap metal out at 150 kilometres an hour and can handle more than 7 tonnes of metal an hour, ensuring less waste and a greener production process.
Yeah, it's incredible. Well, they always striving for better, aren't they, up in Nissan there? They do an incredible job. Dairy Partners, they're building a new factory in Gloucester. What have you got to say about this one?
Yeah, we've been around the world, but back to a family-owned British manufacturer. Dairy Partners manufactures mozzarella, string cheese, pizza cheese products, has appointed Pentadel to design and deliver its new HQ near Stroud in Gloucestershire, incorporating production, storage and logistics areas, as well as offices. The £15 million facility also provides scope for expansion with areas set aside for future production lines and new freezer equipment.
Just to finish, we're going to finish on a high, aren't we? The UK manufacturing PMI is at a record high.
It certainly is, and it's been incredibly well received on our social media platform this week. UK manufacturing PMI, as you say, surged to an unprecedented high of 65.6 in May. Record growth of new orders and employment supported one of the steepest increases in production volumes in the survey's near 30-year history.
Yeah, just incredible. And it's a great way of finishing today's podcast. Don't forget to download the MTD MFG app, which is available for iPhone and Android to get exclusive content. Thanks again to BAE Systems, my co-host Stuart Whiteend, and as always, my biggest thanks goes to you for listening at home. See you next week.
To the Great British Manufacturing Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and a review. You can find us on Twitter using @MTDMFG and @Jefferson_MFG.